Hi everyone. I'm getting ready to start a tutorial on how I start out making my heads. I do a half of a head first, and then when I get the head to the way I want it and everything, then I start building up the back of the head. This is just a lot easier for me because my clay gets so soft on me, so I started doing a half of a head. And this one here is the one that we will be working on. I'm not going by any references. I'm just sculpting and just seeing what comes up. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to show you how I got to this one. And the reason for that is because I put epoxy inside of the eye sockets, and this one it's already dried and everything. So once I show you how I get to this, then I can just keep going on with the tutorial. Okay, I'm going to set that one aside, and all I did was I made a half of an egg. And if you're wondering about the thickness, you can just go ahead and make your solid egg, and then put it in your freezer to make it nice and firm, and then slice it in half, and then you would have your thickness. But I've done this so many times that I just don't have a problem with it. Okay. All right, what I do is I'm visualizing, and this just helps me with my focus, because it seemed like that was the one area that I had to really work with myself. If I didn't put a focus, how do I want to say it? I can't think how I want to say it, but something to keep my mind in that direction. Then I would be all over the head, and then I would lose what it was that I was even going for. Okay, so I'm just going to take this, and I'm just going to make kind of a halfway mark. And then this part is I'm visualizing a ball. So I would normally do this right on the table, but I've got to kind of hold it up for the camera. And I don't know if I'm going to even get it right. But I would draw in my circle. Now, if I wanted different eyes, like hooded eyes or eyes not slanted, then all I would do is I would still draw this circle in for myself, but then I would draw another line just going straight across for the eyes. Okay, now you can see I have my ball circle up on top. And I am going to just draw in that halfway mark. And I kind of want my eyes to be spaced further apart. So I'm going a little bit below the line, because I kind of want a younger look. And I don't even know if I'm really on this. Okay. But the corner here, I stay right on my line. Okay, and then roughly put in her nose. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but I am working with Cernet polymer clay, and I'll roughly put her mouth in. Okay, let me set this aside. Now this, she could be off. The tripod is really in my way, and I'm trying to make this work. But what I do at this point is I will take my knife and I will slice. I want my knife blade to be right at the corner of that mark for her eye. And I'm going to slice it. And I'm going to follow that line that I made for the ball. And I'm going to do the same thing. I don't want to cut the bridge at all. Okay, see, now I'm not even, but you're getting the idea of how I'm doing it, because when I don't have this tripod in front of me and I can leave it on the table, I can work with it so much better. Okay, now what I do is this part here, like I said, is my ball. This part here, I'm just visualizing, this is only for how it works for me. I visualize a heart. Same thing on this side. Okay, now I know that we all have different shapes of face, but I start out with a heart shape, and then if I want a round face, then I change it, or a square face, or whatever, I change it. But I just always start with a heart. Okay, now I'm going to take a large ball stylist, and I've got to put it down on the table, you guys. And what I'm doing is I want to open up the eye sockets, but I want to make sure that I keep it right where I put the corner of the eye. Oh, am I having a hard time holding this? Okay. There. And what I want to do is I want to make these eye sockets large enough so that I can, when I put my epoxy in it and then I put my eyes in, that it's going to be deep enough and wide enough for the eye to go in. Now the reason why I do this is because it seems like the epoxy gives me the support so that when I'm working with the head, my eyes aren't shifting. I always had that problem. Okay, I'm going to try to do the same thing on this side. I'm not going to be real particular with this one. Okay, and then the bridge of her nose. Now, here is one corner. Waiting for it to focus. Let's see. Okay, here's one corner. And one corner. So my circle, this part right here, the circle is going to come just a little bit lower. It's, in other words, it wouldn't come straight across, just a little bit lower. And then what I want to do is I'll take my tool and I will move this part up to the forehead. And I'm doing a very, very light touch. And then take my tool and go up towards the nose. And this is how I will start getting the nose. And I just kind of like work this out. And you don't have to worry about if this part here is, you know, if you see that you want the eyes to be smaller, that's not going to be a problem because you can always fill that in with your clay. But I just want to make sure that I have that opened enough and deep enough for the eyes to go in. And I need to bring that down just a little bit more. Whoops. Now I'm pushing down in the eye socket, but I'm not hitting my tile, but it is pretty far back because when I put the epoxy in the eye, you know, it's going to build it up. So I don't want my eyes to be looking like they're popping out of the head. Okay, you guys, that's roughly how I do that. Then I take my two-part epoxy, and I'm just going to just do one little piece here. You want equal amounts of each one, and you do have plenty of time to work with this. It takes about 24 hours for it to completely set up, but I will start working on it depending on the weather too. If it's real humid, which it has been for the last couple of days, it might take a little bit longer, but I can usually work on it in about an hour. It'll still be, you know, soft, but not real soft, but I can work on it. And you want to mix it up real good. If you don't have equal amounts in it, then it's either, depending on which part you put in, it won't set up, or if you put the one part on it where it'll set up real quick. Okay, so I would just take my epoxy and, oops. And basically I'm making like a shell. The one thing that I do want to explain with you with this is that, let's say that you know, I've sculpted my head, and maybe I see that I didn't line up the eyes, or I wanted to change it a little bit. You still can, because the epoxy is still up against the raw clay. Now once that's cooked, no, you're not going to be able to do any of that, but when it's still in the raw clay, even though that epoxy is hard, like if I saw that I had one eye sticking out too far, I can actually take that eye and push it down, because I still have the raw clay to where it's against it. Okay, now what I'll do is just make a shell. And then I would just let that set for a while. So we'll put this aside, and this is where she would be. And you guys, I think I'm gonna turn the camera off. It seems to me like, I don't know if I've got too much light, but I want to check that out before I go any further. So I'll be right back. Okay, you guys, I tried this so many times of trying to show you on camera of setting on these eyes. It is very, very difficult, but I did get one in, and I'm going to try to show you on this one. Okay, now I'm going to take just a little bit of epoxy. Let's hope I can do this. I've got to turn it just a little bit. See, my epoxy's already starting to set up, but it's soft. But actually, the stage that it's at now, I really like working with it. Okay, let's see if I can get this one in. Now then, the one thing I want to explain is that you're working with your eyes. You're going to see that they're going to get, they're going to look kind of cloudy maybe. But when I'm all done sculpting the head, that's pretty much the last thing that I'll be concerned with. You just don't want to clean your eyes with alcohol or even water. I've ruined eyes by just using water. You wouldn't think so. So what I use is I started using Renaissance wax, and it's a little bit pricey, but it'll last a long time, and I actually have totally run out of it. Okay. And I was kind of wondering if beeswax, if that would work. So when I go out, I'm going to pick up some beeswax. I won't try it on these eyes. I'll try it on a pair that I don't really care about. There, it's going in. See, I mean, see, I've got I have real good support, but I'm still able to push it. Okay, and I want to bring this over. Now I'm going to have to really look at this off camera, and when I get them to where they're lining up, like this one here needs to go back a little bit further, and make sure that you look at it from the bottom to the sides, over the top, and make sure that they're both out the same distance. And I also wanted to mention this too. I know sometimes we get intimidated if we feel like we're going to use a certain medium, and once it cures or whatever, it's like, oh no, I've made a mistake. No, all that work is gone. Let's say that my eyes were just totally wrong. As long as my head's not cooked, okay, I can actually go in there and cut those eyes out. In other words, it's going to be a little bit of work of, building, that part up that you're cutting out, but it's totally not destroyed. And you want to watch this part. I'm not really worried about it, but I just want to point it out, is that when you do use the epoxy, don't use a whole bunch of it to where it's going to ooze out over the side of the eye. Now this part here, I'm not really worried about it because clay is going to all be filled in this area. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to line these eyes up before my epoxy dries, and we'll get going further on the head here. So I'll be back, you guys. Okay, everybody, I want to show you this real quick because the camera is going to keep going on and off because I have to really work with the eyes. But I wanted to show you this next stage. I take a piece of the clay and I roll it out real thin, and I get a hole punch that is close to the size of her eye, and I punch out 2 little circles, and I lay that on top of the eyes. Now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to just roughly do this, is I'm just getting that seam to join. I'm just going to do one eye. And then what I take is my X-Acto knife, the blunt end, and do it very lightly. But I'm going to just slice just a little. I'm barely touching that eye. And then I have a tool here. It's got a rubber end to it. They're called shapers. And I'm going to very, very lightly I'm pushing it into that little gap. Then I will take a tool and I will start working my clay down onto the face. And I just keep doing this until I get that eyelid the way I want it. And if you see that it's too thick, well, you can always go in there and just take a tool and start working your clay to thin it out. And I'll take a stylus, very, very lightly. Everything that I do is a very, very light touch. Okay, and then this area right here, I'm going to add a little bit more clay because I want that clay to come up. Like this is going to be a circle. And I need a little bit more clay right in here. And then the bridge, all of this, it's going to be opened up. Oops. I hope I had that in the camera. Okay, that's the starting of the eye, and it needs a lot more work on it and a lot on her face, but that is how I set my eyes. And then I'll thin this all down also. Okay, you guys, I'm going to work on the other eye, and I'm going to also keep working on this one, but I wanted to show you how I applied the eyelid to it. And I will be back with the next stage. Okay, everybody, I'm going to do one other thing with this, and I wanted to get it on camera, but I only have 16 minutes to do it, and then I've got to recharge my battery. The eyes are still nowhere where I want it, but what I wanted to get on camera is that I just want to sketch in more of her mouth. So I have her line there, and I just want to show you how I get it going. I take my tool and I just pull it up just a little bit just to get an upper lip. And then the bottom. A chin a little bit. I'm barely touching this, you guys. And her jawline will be about right there. And I will thin out her face some. Okay, you guys, I've got to recharge my battery, but I wanted to get the mouth in there because it was distracting me of the way that I had it, and I wanted to show you that stage. So I'll be back when I'm ready to come back on the camera. Thank you. Okay, everyone, I'm back, and I've worked on her a little bit, and I want to show you so far what I've done. And what I've decided to do is that since I can't always record every day, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this video up, and then I'm going to still work on her eyes, her nose, and her mouth, and I'm probably going to even take some of her head down a little bit. I'm going to probably go in on the sides, thin up her chin a little bit. I see a lot of things that I'd like to change, but I'm going to do that, and that just doesn't take me like an hour. It'll take me a while, but when I finish this part up, I'm going to show you how I do the back of the head, and I do use epoxy again. and the wire armature will be stuck into the head at the same time that I'm building the head, the back of the head. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up and show you what I have so far, and I'll be back with the other video. And when I was looking through, when I was going through the video here, there was a couple of things that I saw that I didn't mention, and I'm thinking that I'll do a quick video explaining some little techniques that I do with myself to make things a little bit better. And I'll be back, you guys, with the second part of building the back of the head. I hope that you enjoy this part, and I hope it is something that you think that you would like to try. So I'm going to go back to work with her and see if I can't make her come alive a lot more. So I'll see you then.